Good evening and welcome to the September 17th, 2018 meeting of the Merrimack School Board. If you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And item number 2 is public participation. Anyone from the public that wishes to speak, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. If you are a student, just your first name and grade will be fine. Seeing none, we will close public participation and go on to item number 3, which is the recognition of the Merrimack Hawks cheerleading organization. I invite to the table Shannon Rand, Stephanie Bennett, Julia Matt. I don't see Kyle Fournier, Summer Krug, and Marissa Matt. Oh, Kylie Fournier. That's why I was looking for it. I'm not wearing my readers. I'm trying to get away with it. It's not working out. So, Kylie, we do welcome you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, has green light on?
Yes,
Good.
it is.
You're ready.
Thank you for allowing our organization time to speak today to the school board. My name is Shannon Rand. For those who do not know me, I'm the vice president of Merrimack Hawks. I'm very excited to stand here and be before you to share some of our stories and some of our successes and what our cheerleaders are learning and accomplishing in our new nonprofit organization. This year has been very exciting first year for us. We have 57 cheerleaders, 8 board members, 11 coaches, and 4 cheer helpers. Our mom and dads created this board to show that it's not just being a cheerleader, but it's also about being a community helper. This year so far, we've done 8 community events where we've gone out and helped out inside the community. And 5 of those events, we actually have been helping out in the schools. One of those events was on Earth Day. We had a bunch of our students and families come out, and we collected over 40 bags. 24 of those bags were on O'Gara Drive, which we cleaned up. We also helped out at the Ice Cream Social by cleaning up and beautifying the Merrimack, the Reed's Ferry flower gardens by mulching and weeding. We also did a book donation of 4 gigantic boxes for Mr. Tanner and Mrs. Robinson's class because they knew that they were going back in with nothing. And so we had 4 gigantic boxes for their students to read this year. We also donated over 200 supplies for the Merrimack School District. We provided 4 backpacks full of school supplies for Thornton's Ferry for some of their students, and the rest was contributed to Reed's Ferry for our students to be able to use. Behind me, I have some of our amazing community helpers, cheerleaders. Last week, I asked them a question and come prepared to speak with you, and I thought, what better way to share our experiences with volunteering within the schools than to have them share their experiences with us. I first have Kylie Fournier. She would like to speak with you, and I asked her, what have you learned from volunteering from the Hawks?
Hi, my name is Kylie Fournier. I am 12 years old and in the 7th grade at Merrimack Middle School. This is my 3rd year of cheering and my 1st year with the Hawks. Before the Hawks, I had never volunteered before but had always wanted to. Volunteering with the Hawks has taught me that I can make a difference and make a real impact on my whole community. Having the chance to volunteer through the Hawks has motivated me to play a bigger part in my community, to be part of something outside of just my friends and family. Most of all, it felt good to take on a challenge and prove that anyone can make a difference, achieve personal goals, and have fun working together as a team, regardless of why you do it. Volunteering with the Hawks has taught me so many things overall and has left a huge impact on me as a person. In the future, I hope to be able to help expand on our volunteer work with the Hawks and continue to make a difference in the Merrimack community. Thank you.
Nice job, Kylie. I next have Summer Krug. I asked her out of all of our cheerleaders, she really helped out with most of the events. And I asked her, why did you choose like almost all of the events and helping out? And here is what she came up with.
Hi, my name is Summer Krug, and I'm 10 years old, and I'm a 5th grader at JMU's. I cheer for the Merrimack Hawks cheerleading. One of my favorite things about the Hawks is we do a lot of nice community projects. One of my favorites was the cleanup at Reeds Ferry School. I love planting flowers and helping our school look ready for spring. We also got to make care bags for foster children. We decorated bags that were filled with a bear and a blanket so they can take them wherever they go. I like making people smile, and so does my Hawks family. Thank you.
Nice job, Summer. Next, we have Julia Maddie. She is one of our cheer helpers. She's not one of our cheerleaders, but she does come in and volunteer countless hours each week to our organization.
Hi, my name is Julia Maddie, and I'm a junior coach for one of the Hawks teams this season. I first started cheering when I was in 4th grade. I didn't have any idea what to expect or how to do anything. I was very nervous and kind of shy. I was placed on a team with girls similar in age to me, but most of them had skills that much surpassed mine. My coach welcomed me and made me feel very comfortable. I grew not only as an athlete that season, but as a person. I fell in love with cheer, and my love has blossomed over the past 8 years, especially since I've started helping with the younger teams. During my 5 years as a Pop Warner cheerleader, I was surrounded by and taught by wonderful coaches and influences who impacted me greatly, and I'll never forget the lessons they taught me or the memories they provided. I learned so much through cheerleading: sportsmanship, teamwork, community, risk-taking, and goal setting. They are lessons I still live by today. My goal as a junior coach this year is to help instill these lessons into the young athletes beginning their cheerleading careers and hopefully expand their love for cheer. I'm coaching a team of 3rd to 6th graders. Many of them have never cheered before and were nervous, and I remember my first practice feeling that way. A month later, and the girls have made tremendous progress and friendships that will last a lifetime. One of the most important lessons my parents taught me as a kid was that family comes first. Family is irreplaceable. Through cheerleading, I've learned that family isn't necessarily by blood. Family is through love. Every team I've been on, every coach I've had has felt like a family, one really big, extended family. I've always been taught that the care we share with each other should be shared to everyone. The Hawks program has a big focus on community service, which is huge. Giving back to all those who have supported me, my teammates, my family, my schools, and my town is something I would like to devote my time to, as they deserve the same. Finally, finding balance between life, school, and cheer can be tough, but Hawks has a priority for education and a focus on it. Doing well in academics is not only encouraged, but applauded. The Little Scholars program that Pop Warner has congratulates athletes who do well in their studies. My first year cheering, I made it to the statewide level. My next 3 years, I did even better and advanced to earn regional recognition and awards for my grades. In 8th grade, I reached my goal and was a national scholar. Being pushed to find that balance and do well has helped me become the athlete and student I have grown to be. The Pop Warner program, phenomenal coaches and teammates I have had have changed my life. The experience, lessons, and opportunities gained by being a Pop Warner cheerleader are incredible. I believe in the values that the Hawks promote. Thank you for your time and support.
Thank you so much. On this last slide, Julia did a great job of talking a little bit about Pop Warner and the Little Scholars program. It's something, and one of the reasons why we went back to Pop Warner. We strive in academics. We believe it teaches our kids a sense of responsibility and appreciation, and we feel as the Hawks organization, helping out in the community and helping out with academics, really makes and shapes an athlete and a person, and when they grow up to be an adult, hopefully they can continue that throughout our community. With that said, my last speaker today is Marissa Maddie.
Hi, my name is Marissa Maddie. I'm a Merrimack Hawks cheerleader. I love cheerleading because you learn lots about sportsmanship and to be a good teammate. I've learned that it's always important to have a good attitude and to learn from my mistakes because practice makes progress. 2 years ago, my cheer team worked together toward a group goal to be the best. We worked hard and supported each other, and together we earned the opportunity to compete for the national title in Disney. This year, my Hawks team has the same goal to repeat that experience, but I also have individual goals to gain new skills and become a stronger athlete. I am so glad that my Hawks coaches and teammates support me in achieving my goals. I am so proud to be a Merrimack Hawks cheerleader. Thank you.
Nice job. Well done, ladies. So that's just a little bit about Merrimack Hawks and why we're here. Please let us know if there's anything within the school community that we can go out and help and serve, whether it be gardening and weeding at an elementary school or helping out a school, grabbing books, those types of things. We're here to help and support you. Thank you so much for this time and the recognition from the school board. We really do appreciate all the help that you've done this year for our first year. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Are there any questions of the team while we have them here? I wrote down 3 words: practice makes progress. We do that a lot here too. So I think it's something you can take your entire life and, definitely take that with you. And we had it from one of our youngest voices, so that's very good that you're instilling those values so early on through this program. So very happy. And we just really appreciate what you do for our schools. So often, these efforts do get unrecognized, and hopefully we as a board can work to change that. And I think our conversation got a nice idea sparked. So thank you, Shannon. To that end, we did want to give you a certificate of appreciation. It says the certificate of appreciation awarded to the Merrimack Hawks for improvement to our schools, awarded the 17th day of September 2018. I'm not skipping fall, and signed by.
Thank you
So,
very much.
thank you
We
for your records.
appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And in keeping with my long-standing tradition of forgetting, I wanted to let you know that Cinda Gualyumi and Student Representative Chris Puzzo are excused from tonight's meeting, and we will see them next time. So on to item number 4, which is the update on implementation of the elementary math program. And Mark, I will let you introduce our speakers.
Perfect. So as they come up, I would recognize Marcia McGill, the principal of Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, Helen Fitzgerald, jack of all trades. I just don't even know how else to say it. Michelle Romaine, principal of Mastrocola Elementary School, and Alice Donahoe, teacher at Merrimack Mastrocola Elementary School. I just would say as I begin that Mrs. McGill, I must take this opportunity every chance I get, in addition to being principal of Mastrocola Upper Elementary School, has been chair of our math committee, curriculum committee, and adoption committee for a number of years now, and that really could be a full-time job. And I just want to thank her again. Not just Marcia, she'd be the first to say that everybody on the committee and all of those people here, plus a ton of people who are not here, are equally responsible for all that work. But it has to be led by somebody. And so, Marcia, again, I thank you. And so you're going to introduce this night and then your team.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Board, for allowing us to come again to talk about math, because we're very excited about the work that we've done through the last several years in reference to math, the revision of the curriculum, which really is what guides all the work that we do, and then the adoption of a resource to help support the curriculum. So that's come about in the last couple years. This being the second year in, we had training again on Tuesday of August Academy, and I wanted to share with you a little bit about how it's structured and some of the main key points from that day. It was structured into 3 or really 4 training sessions, one for K2 students, one for 3-5, not students, excuse me, teachers, educators, 3-5 educators, and then 6 and 7. That was another group, and then the last group would have been the high school, and that would be 8th grade through the high school for Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. So with that said, some of the key points that day was to help teachers really understand and the importance of teaching math with understanding for students, teaching students to persevere, teaching students to ask, to think, to develop reasoning and understanding. Also, good math thinkers look for relationships in math to help problem solve. She also talked about the importance of conversation and how important that is for understanding and to prevent misconceptions and just add to students' confidence in their ability to be a mathematician. So with that said, I'd like to introduce at this time Alice Donahoe and Helen Fitzgerald and let them tell you from an educator's perspective.
So I was at the 3 to 5, and we were at the middle school in the cafeteria. There were about 60, 65 teachers in our group. And the representative that we had was Patty Gilmet. She was from New Jersey, and she came to share her expertise with us. She gave us this math problem that you see, and to start us off, she had us work in groups of 2s, and then eventually in groups of 4s, and then as tables, and come to a consensus of answers. And so then what she did is, as we collaborated and talked about our answers, and some people said it was 81, and some people said it was 101, and some people came out with a totally different answer. And so she asked different groups to come forward, and teachers, just like kids, got up and explained and said, well, the rows would be worth 20, so I have 20, 40, 60, and so I'm there. And then when it came to the second one, they felt, okay, so the blue flower would be 5, and so that would be 5 and 5 is 10, and the yellow is 20. And someone said, well, if the blue flower is 5, then 5 minus 2 tulips is 3. And so teachers came, and then they said, well, if a tulip, there's 2 tulips, I have 1 tulip. So I'm looking at 1 plus 20 times. And they said, oh, well, some people said that flower was 5. They didn't notice it only had 4 petals. So some people said, okay, if I took order of operations, and I said 4 times 20, and plus 1, I came to 81. And someone says, well, what do you mean? I took that as 5. And somebody said 5 times 20 is 101. So we had lots of discussions, and then other people even presented that last part without order of operations. So a kindergarten person, they just says, well, my kindergarten kids would do, 1 plus 20 is 21 times 4. And so we had all these different answers going around. And so then, and it was really cool because it was just like we were a bunch of kids, different tables standing up and sharing answers. And that's exactly what she wanted us to do. She wanted us to act like the kids, to collaborate, to listen, to think about a problem, to truly listen to one another, what everybody is sharing, and then come to a consensus. And someone says, well, some people even took the blue flowers as like 9. And so you figured if they're 9 and 9 is 18, and then 18 and 12, so then you could come down here and say, well, 9 minus what is 3, so you'd get 9 minus your 6, okay, and then a tulip then becomes worth 3, and so we had all these different problems coming around, and so we wanted, obviously, a right answer because we're math people and we're teachers, and she said there isn't a right answer to this problem. What was so cool about this problem was that we all got to think about it, really think about it, and how we all felt confident thinking about it, and that no one was right or wrong. We listened to our neighbors and said, oh, well, you think that's, 2, I might think that's 1. And all the conversations that went on, so she was telling us that's what we have with problem solving with our children in our classrooms, that everyone can speak, they can all have their explanations, and just to get the confidence going is what she started us off with. It was really a good beginning, and we spent quite a bit of time on this one problem.
With never finding the answer.
With never finding the answer.
And I was with Helen at the grades 3 through 5, so I can attest to the 3rd and 5th grade teachers. I got some feedback, some really positive feedback from a lot of those teachers from those grades, just saying that Patty was a great presenter. She really was informative. She was patient, which is really nice, especially when your teacher's coming back from summer vacation. So she was very patient. She knew we were excited to be back at school and see everybody. So she was patient with us and explaining the problems to us and discussing how math is more of a conversation than just actually solving the problems. And to have true mathematicians, you really need to be talking about math as opposed to just solving the math. and really just getting an understanding for that. I also have some notes. I was not at the K through 2, but Sherry, the math facilitator from Reed's Ferry, sent some notes in. So I was just going to read what her notes were from that. Unfortunately, I can't really attest to that because I was at the 3 through 5, but if everyone's okay with me just reading from the notes that I received. Okay, so Sherry wrote that the training was a very teacher-driven day planned around the needs of new and second-year teachers of the Envision program. It started off as a complete overview of a lesson and all the components, including the solve and share, visual learning, guided practice, independent practice, and differentiated center time. Teachers were given suggested timeframes for each section, shown where they can access each part online, how to move from one online section to the other with ease and pace for a lesson. The teachers were then shown additional tools of the program, including games, math tools, and functions for parents and students to use at home. Teachers were able to explore what parents and students have access to without a teacher assigning an activity for students to complete. The families can play all of the games from kindergarten through 6th grade, as well as explore a wide variety of math manipulatives and tools online. This is without a teacher setting to a specific assignment for students to work on. They also discussed a wide variety of ways the program can help us assess our student math skills and concepts, from paper to online assessments after a few topics, or end of the year assessments. And then from there, they had discussions about the integrated boxes, as well as how to do technology online and actually have that opportunity to explore and have some time with the technology and actually just dive deeper into it with a hands-on approach. What they know now is that they really had to work hard this past year to learn about the different components, and now they know that they can make some changes on how they can do the teaching aspects of the program. They can spend less time on independent work because it's okay to not do every single problem, and spend more time in small groups to help students target the skills to build a better understanding of the students. So those are her key points.
So some of the teachers felt like, what's next? So you had a program for the first year, what's your next step? And so Patty showed the teachers, or asked the teachers for feedback, which have, let's say, followed the program and what they might want to do next. Many teachers thought they would go into the technology. There's videos, some of them hadn't, some of the teachers just followed the program and they were the facilitator, and now they figured this year they were going to incorporate some of the videos that are available within the program. Other teachers thought, oh, I might want to try some of the online assessments. So Patty also showed us how we can assign online assessments within the program. So we ended up bringing, after lunch, we brought in 2 carts of laptops, and so everyone was able to log on. Patty showed us how we can go in, assign an assessment, and then what is the feedback that we get from the assessment. So if a student takes an assessment, the student sees their score, and then the teacher is able to say, these are the standards that I know, these are the standards that I still have to work on, and then there is a breakdown of what answers I had correct or incorrect followed up. So from there, a teacher is able to say, okay, this person, maybe needs to work on number 10, and the teacher then is able to go in and see what number 10 looks like. So there were the next steps, some of the buddy practices, some of the differentiated learning that is available from the program, the math tools, the math games, and so teachers had that opportunity, and then they said, well, this is what I think I'll try next, and incorporate this into my instruction.
So I was fortunate to attend the kindergarten through 2nd grade training that first Tuesday, and I have to say the excitement was unprecedented when we were working with the kindergarten teachers, and they had the thought of they were going to have their students all day to be able to implement the math program. So there was definitely a buzz in the room to start. The focus for the kindergarten through 2nd grade was really about how to make the program work for us and for each child. So the teachers dug deeper into the components that they've already been working with in order to be able to differentiate more, whether it was in the activities the students were practicing, the assessments that they were taking, homework practice items. They also did a lot of work with the intervention kit, which we have had, but the teachers were able to really dig in and see what types of activities were there in order to implement into their small groups. They also had a lot of time to dive into the technology and to look at how it can be most effectively and efficiently used for students, both at school and at home. One of the things I think was the most powerful in the interactions I saw was there was a lot of time for teachers across the buildings to talk about what had worked well in their classrooms, what aspects they were using, how they were integrating the program with the standards, how the standards were fitting in and what they were adding to or whatnot. But there was a lot of conversation where the teachers were able to talk and learn from each other, which was greatly appreciated, I know.
So I'll just,
Absolutely.
yep. So I'll just sum up by saying that you heard each person talk a little bit tonight about something that we've been raising a lot over the years, and I think it's just worth repeating. In everything that we're trying to do in our instructional practices in Merrimack, we're trying to introduce a dimension of problem solving and understanding. And I've said this many times, but it's worth repeating. There's a difference between knowing and understanding. So you can know your math facts, but you could not understand anything about the principles of mathematics that you could apply to problem solving. And so we are trying to change the definition of rigor in mathematics to include both knowing, which is important, you must know your math facts fluently, but also to include understanding. And so I think what each of the presenters tonight have tried to describe to you is the way that the training is continuing that tradition in Merrimack of presenting to teachers that aspect as well. And I must say the teachers have really embraced that additional challenge. Not that they haven't always appreciated the understanding component of teaching, but we've really kind of institutionalized that across the board. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to once again kind of reiterate that that is a goal. And for when Mrs. Fitzgerald was talking about the assignment that they had, it's very important to say that a lot of the work that teachers do with students is get them to have math confidence, and that comes with working through problems. And getting the answer right is very important, but understanding the process that you take to get an answer. And as we all know, sometimes there are multiple ways to get an answer. And those are the kinds of things that we're really trying to build up in our students and through the training with our teachers. So I thank you all for continuing that effort.
Are there any questions? I see Naomi and Andy so far.
Thank you for coming. This is a bit of a random question, and if you don't have an answer, that's okay. It's just a bit of memory that surfaced. At one of the previous presentations, there was mention that I think it was the first grade, some of the materials had a reading level that was a little bit tricky to deal with. I was curious first whether or not that was something that was explored in the training and whether that was helpful, and the other is how's the year beginning as far as that?
We did talk about it in the training to the extent that it was something that all of the first grade teachers had noticed. And so they talked about ways that they did work around that and with that, the reading level being somewhat difficult for the kids starting. And so they shared different strategies that they used, whether it was to do certain some of the pages in small groups. One of the things that a lot of teachers did was talk about how they used the games that went with those concepts, and they used where they gave a problem similar to what Helen put up, but the kids then talked about it so that there were ways that they could work around having the students do a number of problems where the reading part was difficult. I have to say it's a little bit smoother being in a first grade this year because the students are used to the routines of the program. However, the reading part is still a challenge for some of the kids. Although some of the kids will sit right down and they'll underline, I could read this word, this word, this word. If someone could read the rest, please. So it's a little bit smoother, but the reading is still, we're still working through that.
Andy?
So I don't know if this question is for Mark or for you guys. And I asked this question of the higher grades last year and was told it's too early. But whenever we change programs and we evolve like this, the first thing that taxpayers ask us and voters ask us is it working? Is it having a positive effect? Because there was a belief that the former program was not effective, especially in the younger grades. There was an impression, right or wrong, and we switched to this program. So I guess I'm looking for, at what point do we know whether or do we already know whether it's more effective? Are the kids learning better? Are they picking math up easier than before? I mean, I guess we're on this growth path, right? Every year you're in the second year going through it, and that's why I say maybe too early. But any observations that you've got, and then sort of the trajectory where we may see it. And I don't know if it's for you or for them. It's just a general question.
I think whenever you work with students and you're really trying to get them to, comprehend and be confident, and I think we're including more conversation for more understanding. A lot of that productive struggle is happening, and we're seeing children really embrace that. So I guess at this point, I don't know if we can really say we're seeing scores so much because we've only been into it for the second year, but I think we're seeing students embrace that conversation, embrace that kind of struggle, feeling a little more comfortable because they're talking about it. They're not being talked at. They're talking with their peers. They're working things out. So I think whenever you give children an opportunity to kind of understand it more, they really go after it. And we found the students to feel confident in doing that, at least in our building we have, and we want to encourage that. So that conversation, that understanding.
And is there any feedback from parents about what they think about it? I mean, you obviously haven't had conferences yet, but sometimes parents are not shy about saying whether, oh, this is awful or this is great. Anything yet?
I haven't heard anything about being awful, so.
Brandy?
First, I'd like to say thank you for all of your hard work and all that goes into this. I can imagine the shift from one program to another from an educator perspective has to be quite an undertaking. So thank you for all that you have done. I have sort of two things. First, as a parent of 3 children, 2 of which are now in JMUs, the shift was quite challenging from everyday math to Envision, and I think the initial first year was the biggest challenge, mainly because of the way there is so much that is involved in the word problems themselves, as opposed, to your point of knowing and really understanding. It really forced them outside of what they had been taught was their comfort zone. And I, as a parent, truly enjoyed watching that growth, because if you stay in the same spot, you're not really growing. And if we're always in our comfort zone with education, we're certainly not going to be teaching them from a well-rounded perspective, that is. And with math, there is so much that goes into it outside of just knowing your math facts. From a person who's new to this whole process, one question that I would have is, where are we still finding challenges? And are those challenges from an educator perspective being discussed as well? Because I think at this point we've had some opportunities to kind of really understand what we've chosen. We understand how the children are responding, and we're able to sort of take a step back at this point and really understand how well it's been adopted and how we've adapted to the scenario of moving into a different math program. But where do we still have some opportunities for growth? Have they been identified, and have we at any point really come to understand what we're going to do for moving forward with creating solutions for those opportunities.
So I'll just weigh in, and then I'm going to look to the experts to fill in the holes. I'll give you just one example of something that we're trying to work through. Take assessments, for instance. You know, assessments are always kind of a dicey conversation, because some people say, oh, you know, you assess too much. And to that, I've used the example before. If you have sort of present with an illness to a doctor, the doctor isn't just going to give you medicine. There's going to be some sort of an assessment, and then based on the assessment, they're going to give you a treatment. And then based on the treatment, they'll assess again to see whether the treatment is working too well, not well enough, or not at all. And so if we believe that assessment is supposed to guide instruction, then it stands to reason that there would be more assessment than not for the sake of testing, but for the sake of figuring out what is it that a student is working well with and not. So in that spirit, there's been a question as to whether we would utilize the online assessments that come with the program or the paper pencil assessments. And as with a lot of things, there are pros and cons. When you use the online assessment, it's quicker, but you don't always have the benefit of seeing the students' work to understand where they might have made a mathematical misconception or something in the process that you could say, that's it. But that takes a little bit longer. And so that was a question that was brought up by the teachers. So they identified the sort of the phenomena of that challenge and then brought it up to the consultants and asked them from their perspective, what would they suggest? And so that was just one example of what was identified as a challenge. And you also mentioned word problems and the language base. And that's certainly something that Mrs. Romaine talked about as being something that we've continued to identify and are working through. And before I turn it over to the team, I would just say that it's also important to say that right now two things are happening simultaneously. One is the implementation of our curriculum, which, as Mrs. McGill said, is driving everything. In the past, we had the program that just drove everything that we did. And typically, programs don't, have a they're not typically guided by, big ideas or general understandings or, always tight fidelity to standards. But we have a curriculum that does. And so the program was one of the big reasons that it was chosen was because it aligns well with the standards. But teachers right now recognize the challenge of trying to utilize the newly adopted program in the service of the curriculum rather than no curriculum and I just do what the book tells me to do. So that is not something that changes overnight, because almost throughout the history of teaching math, it's often happened absent scope and sequence from a curriculum. It's literally just the publisher's program. So I would just offer those as three areas that have been identified. And what we often say in Merrimack is, you're halfway to the solution when you can at least name the problem. And most of the things that I just described were not necessarily, in fact, at all of them, I think teachers themselves as utilizers of this have identified that and are, as Mrs. Donahoe said, working as teams to try to resolve those problems and those challenges. So I would just offer that, and you're the practitioners. So.
I'll add to that, if it's okay. So I think what you're talking, one of the things you're talking about really is what we as educators do every day, which is look at what instruction is provided and then take some sort of assessment. And we are using assessments within the program, but it's important to note that we also have assessments that are standardized, like our STAR testing. We also participate in statewide testing. So we have other measurements that we can look at. So I think it's too early to say the program doesn't do well in X. However, our teachers are looking at the data from either program assessments or non-program assessments, identifying areas of need across grade levels, across buildings, and from there make decisions. So while I think it's too early to say exactly what would be a weakness or more of a challenge to Envisions, we're consistently looking at where are those weaknesses and gaps relative to the standards and instruction consistently in all subject areas.
And then the other piece, I think our students are becoming great in problem solving and explaining their answer. Before, they would take, 23 times 34 and get an answer, and they could have been right or wrong. But now they're able to look at a problem, read the problem, know what are the key parts of this problem that I'm solving, and then they come to a conclusion, what do they need to do with this information, and find the answer. And then they can explain their answer. So I think that is in itself a lot that has transpired for the students. And if you look at them, let's say what they did in September to how they talk in the math class this past June, they've come miles. So their growth is phenomenal. And I think the teachers have seen it. I think the students and I think the kids themselves will say to you, yeah, I understand that. I can take this problem and I can go through my 3 steps and explain my answer. And I know this answer is greater than this answer and this one makes sense. So I think that whole piece of the problem-solving challenges is our opportunity of growth that we see happening. You're welcome.
And actually, I think Mark answered the question I was going to have, which is, if you're doing electronically, how are you going to show your work to know if they guessed it a good answer, if they actually really understood it? So you're working on that with your own refinements in the classroom, and that's perfect. So thank you for that. So are there any other questions on math? I think we're good. So far, so good. I know it's only 2 weeks in, but thank you so much. We're on to item number 5, which is information regarding the 2nd Merrimack School District and Southern New Hampshire University cohort, and I will turn it over to Mark McLaughlin.
Yes, indeed. So, several years ago, we partnered with Southern New Hampshire University to have our first cohort, and at that time, Merrimack was one of the first districts really in the state to have that kind of partnership with SNU. And so we had our first group graduate several years ago, and then in the interim, there was some restructuring at SNU because once you go through something like that, both sides recognize things that worked well and things that need to be tweaked a little bit. And so it was a couple of years to work through that, and that happened. And so now we have just started our 2nd cohort. So I'll just give you just a little bit of basic information about how this works. So we have 23 participants right now. Those 23 participants are in the midst of choosing one of 3 paths. One is a master's in curriculum, the other would be a master's in administration, and the other would be a certificate of advanced graduate study, or a CAGS. So right now they're just in the early stages, so they've just finished one course this summer, so they haven't differentiated yet. So if you were to ask me how many of that group of 23 are going in which direction, they haven't been required to make that decision yet, so I don't know. But those are the 3 paths that they can elect to take. The total number of credits is 36, which typically runs 2.5 years. It depends a little bit on the speed at which the cohort chooses to move. So one of the really cool things about the way this works is that the cohort is really in the driver's seat for how quickly or how slowly they wish to move along. So we have a liaison who's one of our teachers in district who's in the program, and she is a liaison really between myself, let's say, in the university to talk about whether they'd like to take a course last summer, and they elected as a group to do that. They could have waited until the fall, but they wanted to get kind of going, and so they asked, and SNU was able to find an instructor and then proceed starting already in the summer. They're about to start their second course, and they get to elect which of the required courses they would take next in the sequence, and then they've elected to do that. So as much as is possible, there's a customization. At a certain point when the program begins to differentiate, then people have to branch off and have to kind of make their own choices about how that works, but they're still going to proceed as a cohort. The courses cost $675 for 3 credits, which is really a tremendous opportunity. And we're really grateful to Southern New Hampshire University for once again providing that incredible offer to our teachers. And it's important to note that our professional development funds that are provided to teachers also get used to defray some of that cost. So really, between the money that's allowed for teachers for their professional growth and the significantly reduced rate that SNU is offering, teachers are really being well served, and we're very grateful to SNU for that. This summer, the first course was held at the Manchester campus. Because we had so much work happening in district, it was literally kind of hard to find a space that could accommodate them this summer. However, from now on, and with the possible exception of next summer, depending on what work happens, maintenance-wise, facilities-wise in the district, but most courses are going to be held on campus here in Merrimack, which is also very nice. And the cohort has elected, I believe it's Tuesdays. That's a date that works for everybody. So there's going to be the same date, and same day of the week and same time of day for the duration, unless the cohort decides to change its mind on that, and then they'll vote as a group, and that will be changed. And then the instructors will come to the Merrimack site for that purpose. You might recall that the last time we had a number of people from Merrimack teach those courses: Debbie Wolfline, Kim Yarlott, Marcia McGill, Bill Morris. That is one of the changes that SNU has put into place. Those are all highly qualified people. They are preferring to maybe have more people who are unfamiliar with a cohort be teaching the cohort. And so Marcia and others may well elect to teach, but they would most likely teach other cohorts from other districts rather than their own. That's been one change. So SNU is entirely responsible for hiring and training these instructors, and it's a SNU course from soup to nuts, including the curriculum, and we just house it here. And so that next course is about to begin, and the group seems to be deciding that they'd like to move a little quicker, maybe than the last one did. So whereas 36 credits in 2.5 years is what the standard is, I think they might be electing to go a little quicker than that and maybe try to be done in 2 years. However, these are all full-time employees as well, so we'll see how long that lasts. They may want to just take a little bit more time, which is perfectly their purview to do. But I just have to say that it's been really great to work with the staff at SNU. They are very responsive. The communication has been excellent. They're very organized, and they've really provided a great opportunity for our teachers. And so with this group, we will, by the time it's over, we'll have produced nearly 50 educators with master's degrees just through the cohort program between Merrimack and Southern New Hampshire University. So I'm sure there'll be more to say as this goes on, but we're really delighted with SNU, and our teachers are really grateful, and they know that they've got a good opportunity, and they're very grateful to the district for providing the funds through professional development to defray the cost, and we know who pays for that, and so we're grateful. And also, again, to SNU for what it's offering us. So there we go.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, another great start to another successful cohort, I'm sure. So thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing the progress, and definitely who takes what track, because I think we're probably all a little curious. So, excellent. So we are on to item number 6, which is the outcome from the Department of Education rehearing relative to Mr. Bevel's complaint regarding the school district's homework protocol. And I will turn the mic over to Marge.
Thank you. So what I need to relate to you is that on Thursday, September 13th, Mark McLaughlin and I and our attorney, Dean Eggert, went to the Department of Education to attend the State Board of Education meeting for the month. And on the agenda was the request from Mr. Bevel to have, if you will, a rehearing or reconsideration of the homework protocol that the district has put forward. It was very interesting because Mr. Bevel had submitted some additional material to the Board of Education, and we, in turn, our attorney, submitted material as well for the State Board of Education to review. It was, I would call it interesting in the sense that when this particular portion of the agenda was opened up, the only person that spoke was Chairman Klein. And he basically asked for a motion relative to the disposition of this particular item. And a state board member moved to deny the request for a rehearing. There was a second, and the board unanimously agreed to that. So at that point in time, we removed ourselves from the meeting room and came back to Merrimack. So what will happen now is there will be a written rendering with the outcome. That should be coming within the next week or two. And then Mr. Bevel will have 30 days from the time that written piece is put forward to determine whether he wants to take another step or not. So our attorney has advised us that we really will not know probably any outcome until the end of October, to just know if there's going to be another proceeding or not. But I think that we were gratified because really nothing had changed from the outcome of the first hearing. There wasn't anything that was rendered that changed what had been said, and the board, the State Board of Education, thought that. And so it remains, the homework protocol remains in place as you have willed it.
Thank you. So with that, we will just, see what happens next. And we will move on to item number 7, which is the approval of the September 4th, 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion to approve? Made by Andy, seconded by Brandy. Andy and Brandy, we could make this fun. Are there any edits to the minute? Seeing none, and by the way, this font is really working for me.
I wanted to ask you about that because our new recorder obviously is trying to follow the way this board likes to have its minutes done, but you will notice there's a huge difference in font and just presentation, the darker and so on. So important for her to know that. And by the way, she's ill tonight too, so she'll be very pleased to hear that you like this.
Well, I also have, my eyesight has changed since I first joined the board, so this is working out for me. So with that, we'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 4-0-0. We're on to item number 8, which is the consent agenda with Mark.
So on consent tonight, we have the following teacher nominations: Paula Child, special education teacher at Merrimack High School, and Shannon Sweeney, math teacher at Merrimack Middle School.
You mangled Shannon, huh? Okay. So with that, is there a motion to accept? Andy?
I move we accept the consent agenda as read.
Is there a second? Seconded. I'll give it to Naomi. She beat you by a hair. You guys are really jumping at the chance, aren't you? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, none. The motion carries 4-0-0. On to item number 9, which is other. First is correspondence. I do have 2 bits of correspondence I'll lead with. The first is a letter from Don Chisholm, the president of the MTA, requesting that we go into bargaining this fall for, we are into the last year of our agreement. So we will plan to do that. We kind of expected it. So we are planning to go forward. And then I did get a letter from a constituent regarding feedback regarding staff, and I have guided her back into the district avenues to get resolution. So is there any other correspondence to come to the board? Andy?
We also, as at least, I don't know how broad it went, but there was a correspondence from someone asking for information.
Oh, you're right.
In support of
The $1.1 million.
Right.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
The value of the Brentwood building.
So we provided a constituent where we got our research on the $1.1 million valuation for the red building we just purchased. Thank you for that. Sorry, I was in California. I was doing it from on the fly, so it's all blurry. So that's where we're at. No other correspondence, and then on to comments. Any comments from the board? No comments from the gallery. Clearly, Andy.
So I'd like to just stress for people that are still have questions about the Brentwood building. I know we discussed it last time during the meeting. There was a lot of information that was shared during that discussion at the school board meeting, and I encourage folks that still have questions to go back and look at the recording, because as we discussed when we did the presentation back at the deliberative session, the intent is to look at that property for the SAU SPED building. That's certainly our intent. And go through with planning and building to understand the right process. But also the idea is also to look at the short-term utilization as well. So I just want to reiterate to make sure that people understood that there's the long-term intent, but there's also a short-term utilization of the building that we're looking at. So anybody that might have not gotten the full picture, because I know there was a newspaper article that discussed some of the information, but it left out a little bit of some of the details of exactly the different dimensions. So I just wanted to make a comment about that.
Thank you, Andy. Any other comments? Yes, please.
If somebody had a question regarding the short-term utilization, where should they go to have that discussion?
I would say we would probably start with administration.
Okay.
Because they're doing the needs assessment we asked them to do at our last board meeting, and some of it may be more short-term and immediate. Go ahead, please.
Right. I would say our intention is to come back on October 1st and talk to you about some thoughts we have about utilization. And one of the things that Matt is doing is talking with the fire department to talk about occupancy and so on. So there are some things to do before we move in and do something. But if a constituent has a thought, I would welcome them calling, and I would ask you to have that person call Matt Chevenel to just take that down. And then, like I said, we're planning on coming back because the leadership team has been discussing how it might be utilized in the short term, meaning really this particular school year. That's what we're really talking about.
Okay. And Matt, you want to add?
Yeah, Marge, the superintendent had mentioned the fire inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got this news a little while ago via email. We made arrangements or have made arrangements for this Wednesday at around 1 p.m. That's when they can go. So I'm not sure about our budget meeting schedule, but I was planning on being there with Tom Tussaud, and we'll walk the fire department through the building to see what we can do, what we can't do, what we have to make modification to before we start making any promises that we can't, really fulfill at this point in time.
That seems fair. Excellent. So are there any other comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll go on to item number 10, which is new business. I just have one thing. It's kind of existing business. A reminder that Thursday, September 20th, we will be meeting as a joint meeting with the town council. It will be here. So the agenda was just sent from the council this afternoon. I met with Chair Rothaus at 6 o'clock right before our meeting, came straight over, so that's why it's on my phone. So the agenda is as posted as such. The first item will be school resource officer discussion. Second will be Merrimack Skateboard Park. Third will be the cable television franchise renewal. That is an impact for things like wiring, for things like drops in buildings, and video services. It does not include internet service. So I want to, as an old cable person, clarifying for you guys. The item number 4, as we discussed, upcoming budget considerations, things like capital projects and capital collective bargaining agreements. We have some, they have some. So how that impacts the ballots that will go to our voters, which are the same people. And then item number 5 was suggested by the council, which is athletic field discussion. So some of the things that they were looking at are specifically school-owned properties as well. I said it wouldn't hurt my feelings if town-owned properties were discussed, if they had a compiled list. And we also have that report from 2010, which is available, and probably needs just a refresher. So with that, I think we have a lot that we can build off of. So, Marge?
And in addition, would you want to address the board about individual budget messages?
Yes.
Before meetings?
You bet. And then the other thing I want to say to the joint meeting is we have provided the minutes for the November 14th, 2017 meeting as we hosted it. So we are providing the minutes. They will provide the scribe. So they are hosting, and Chair Rothaus will actually run this meeting. So I know it's your first joint meeting. I think maybe your second, Naomi, second or third. Oh, good.
Right.
So on that note, but so on that, and then for our October 1st meeting, we're also looking to have individual board member budget messages. Obviously, Brandy, I'll kind of introduce you to what that is, but we do want to have a combined board message to administration and staff that's formulating the budget, department heads, building heads, about what we're looking for in our operating budget for the next fiscal school year. And with that, we try to have individual messages at one meeting, take those 5 voices, combine them to a collective voice, and bring that to the district administration. So as they're deliberating, they really know what we're hoping to get out of it. One of the real values of it is they won't ask, they won't ask for something we don't feel we can provide. But they can put it on the cut list so we know where their thoughts were at. So that puts us in a nice position to really just frame a very healthy and productive budget discussion. So, excellent. That's all I have for new business. Is there any other new business? Seeing none, any committee reports from the board? Andy?
So, let's see. A week ago today, we had the monthly Ceres Board of Directors meeting. I guess we hadn't met for a couple of months, so it's the first one back from the summer. And again, both the superintendent and I are members of the Board of Directors. It's no longer a membership entity where we're required to be members. This is something that we are doing sort of outside of the scope of a school liaison, but on the other hand, helping to direct Ceres in terms of what they do in terms of programs does ultimately benefit the district. So our involvement there is I think is of value to the district. One of the things that we discussed at this particular meeting was really around some of the innovation that they're trying to do in terms of new programs, new things. They talked about the existing programs that they do, how they're trying to expand it, where their challenges are, but also look at areas to extend in terms of where they think that they can be differentiated and offer programs that are either needed by the districts within the area or something where there's an opportunity to do a better job or a more inexpensive job. So there's a lot of, now that they've settled into a working model moving through this fiscal year, they're starting to look at a lot of business value, added value, so to speak, in terms of what they offer. So that was good. It was good to hear that. And again, we want to make sure that we offered that they could use Merrimack as a resource of finding out what is needed in terms, especially as we head into budget season, understanding what they're going to offer for the next year and making sure the student services director, John Fabrizio, has an insight and be able to give some input into that process. So that was good. And then I also found out that apparently I'm the chairman of the nomination committee since I'm the vice chair of the board of directors. So that'll be something that I get to look forward to.
Thank you. Any other committee reports? Seeing none, we'll go on to public comments on agenda items. The room is empty. We will close it. I will take a moment to sign the manifest, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Made by somebody? Andy? You know, I'm going to second it at this point because I'm down with getting out of here. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None. The motion carries 4-0-0. Thank you and good night.